So you're going to start by opening up your notebook to your green divider tab, and we're going to list our fifth topic in inequalities, which is translating. Translating inequalities. So take a second and make sure you have that topic added to your divider. And then we'll flip to the next page of our notebook. All right, so we flipped to the next page. The last thing you should have in your notebook is your notes on solving two-step inequalities. So hopefully that was completed. You're going to flip to the back of that page and you're going to glue your notes, which you got in class, to the back of that page. So you got your glue stick, take a second and glue that in, if it was not already glued in class. We're going to go through some of these examples of translating. We'll practice graphing the inequality after we've translated it as well. And what we'll start with up at the top is actually reviewing or discussing some key words that might indicate our inequality symbols. So that's going to be our starting point. Then we'll go through these examples, and your classwork page is going to look a whole lot like this. All right, so up at the top, first we're going to list in this top row here are four different inequality symbols. So you have greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. Not really in any particular order, just our four inequality symbols. All right, so we'll discuss some common words or phrases you might see that would indicate each of these symbols. Of course, it's not going to be every possible way that something could be worded to indicate that you're using that symbol. A lot of times you could see synonyms or something that's just kind of worded a little bit differently but means the same thing. So to start out, our greater than sign. So, of course, you could see greater than. Similar to greater than, you could see more than, or I'll put in parentheses, is more than. Exceeds. These are all great examples of keywords that might indicate you're using the greater than sign. Could you see more than that? Yes, but those will be common ones. All right, we have our less than sign. So you could see less than, or I'll actually put it in parentheses as well, is less than. So less than or is less than. Fewer than would be a synonym that would mean the same thing. Or under. Like under a certain number of people can attend, or you have to go under the speed limit or something like that. Under a number. All right, moving on to the next two. So this is my less than or equal to sign. So words you might see that would indicate this might be max or maximum. I'll just put max as an abbreviation. The max number of people that can attend is some number, or else whatever. They have to pay more, they need to get a bigger venue, whatever it might be. It's the max amount of amount of money that they have to spend, something like that. Similar to that might be up to. Maybe you can spend up to $20. Along those same lines would be at most. Also limit, like speed limit. And another one that's pretty common that you might see, no more than. So not more than, because that would be greater than, but no more than means the opposite of that. So instead of being greater than, it's less than or equal to. So be careful with that. And the last inequality symbol, our greater than or equal to symbol. So that might mean, so it means you need that number or more. So another way to say that would be at least, starting at, or no fewer than, kind of the opposite of no more than, no fewer than. So again, there could be some other ones that you may see. These will be most common ones, or you might see some type of variation of the words, similar words that mean the same thing. So using those as kind of like a starting point, we're going to go through these 10 examples where we're going to translate. We're going to look and see, we're going to underline. If we see any of those specific words that are listed above, we're going to underline them. We're going to come up with a variable to represent that situation. So you could use X every time, or sometimes students like to use a letter that starts with whatever you're representing. So for number 1, there were no fewer than 86 people at the party. So be careful, I see no fewer than. If you don't catch that no, it might look like fewer than. So there's no fewer than 86 people at the party. So you could do P for people, or you could use X just for all of these. Whatever your preference, you just have to pick some variable. I'm going to use P for people. Sometimes it helps me figure out the situation a little bit easier if I use a variable that actually that starts with the letter of what we're representing. So P for people. And no fewer than. So I see no fewer than is up here. It means greater than or equal to, which would make sense because no fewer than 86 people, that means there could be 86 people, there could be 87 people, but there's not going to be 85 people because there's no fewer than it. So no fewer than, and then 86 is our number. So I'm comparing that to 86, and you can circle whatever your variable is, and that way you know what that P represents. So the P represents people. The number of people is greater than or equal to 86. No fewer than 86. 86 or more, at least. So when we graph this, we're just going to put 86 in the middle, a number on either side to give us a frame of reference. So to the left of 86 would be 85, and to the right would be 87. This is going to be a closed circle. I have my line under my inequality symbol. So it's a closed circle on 86 because there could be 86 people there. There just can't be less than it. So my values greater than 86 would be shaded to the right. Now, of course, you could write this the other way. You could write it 86 is less than or equal to P. However, when I'm translating, I feel like it's a whole lot easier to list the variable first. It gives you a starting point. You already have part of your inequality. You have the variable. Then you just have to decide if that variable is going to be more than or less than, or of course, more than or equal to, or less than or equal to the number you're comparing it to. So I would recommend anytime you write an inequality from words, start with the variable. You can translate it to this. You could have an answer choice on a test that is flipped around like this. But this should always be your starting point, or it's going to be very easy to make mistakes. because if you don't write your variable first and you see no fewer than means, oh, that's greater than or equal to. And if you write 86 first and then you write greater than or equal to, that's not going to be correct. So these keywords are if your variable is written first. So let's make sure everybody kind of understands that first. Okay, so these keywords for these inequality symbols are if your variable is written first. You can flip it around afterwards, but write your variable first. All right, so number 2, at most 24 students can be in the lab. Okay, well, I see my keyword here is at most. At most is going to not greater than or equal to, it's going to be less than or equal to. 24 is my number that I'm comparing to. And we're looking at the number of students, so that would be our variable. So I'm just going to use S to represent students. Just be careful it doesn't look like a 5 when you write that. So I'm going to write my variable first. I see at most, so that means, again, at most is less than or equal to, and the number I'm comparing it to is 24. So the number of students at most can be 24, so it has to be less than or equal to 24. Of course, I can write it the other way, but again, my keywords would I'd have to flip around my inequality, so be careful with your keywords. So then I would have 24 is greater than or equal to S. So when I graph this, I put 24 in the middle. This would be a closed circle at 24, and my value is less than 24. Ooh, I forgot to label this. Would be 23 and 25. My value is less than 24 would be to the left. All right, number 3, no more than 10 people attending the party. So maybe you're being told that no more than 10 people are attending, maybe no more than 10 people can, but we're going to represent no more than 10 people attending the party. So I see no more than, so be careful, it's not more than, it's no more than. So no more than, I see up here means less than or equal to. 10 people, that's my number I'm comparing it to. And people is what my variables can represent. So I'm just going to use P again for people. So the number of people, or P, has to be less than or equal to 10. Or I could switch it around and say 10 is greater than or equal to P. But again, I want to write it like this first if I use those keywords to help me. I'm going to put the number I'm comparing in the middle, so 10 in the middle, 9 to the left, 11 to the right. This will be a closed circle, and less than 10 is to the left. So I could have 9 people at the party. That is where my shading goes on my number line. But I could not have 11 people at the party because that is more than 10. It has to be no more than 10. Number 4, it will take less than 15 minutes to explain the topic. So I see less than. I don't see no less than, so just be careful. It's just plain old less than. So that's my less than sign. 15 minutes, that's the number I'm comparing. And minutes is what my variable will represent. So the number of minutes basically that it takes to explain the topic. So I will use M for minutes. So the number of minutes is less than 15, right? Or you could flip it and say 15 is greater than M, but after you've written it this way first. 15 is what I'm comparing to my variable, so I put it in the middle, a number on either side, so 14, 16. This is now going to be an open circle because there's no line under that, and the values that are less than 15 would be to the left. Remember, left is less, right is greater. Number 5, the capacity exceeds 150 seats. The capacity exceeds 150 seats. All right, I see the keyword exceeds here, which tells me that that is going to be greater than. The number I'm comparing it to is 150. Now, here's the tricky part. If I'm using capacity, whatever the capacity is, as my variable, and I'll use C for capacity, then this is how I would write it. So I'll put 150 in the middle. To the left would be 149. To the right would be 151. This would be an open circle. And I'm going to shade to the right because these values are greater than 150. So that means, like, I don't remember exactly how many seats there are, but I know that there's more than 150. The last thing I kind of skipped over here was I can rewrite this, of course, flipping my inequality around. So that would say 150 is less than the capacity, basically. So again, capacity was what my variable represented. All right, number 6, no more than 18 people are needed for the committee. So no more than, I know that that is going to indicate less than or equal to. So that means I could have less than 18 people. I could have 18 people, but I don't need more than that. So that's less than or equal to. My number I'm comparing that to is 18. And you could use P for people, N for number of people, C for committee. I'm just going to use P for people because that's the word I'm going to circle. So the number of people on the committee is going to be less than or equal to 18. You do not need more than that. I can flip that around and write 18 is greater than or equal to P. And I'm going to graph that. The number I'm comparing to P is 18. So I put 17 to the left, 19 to the right. This is a closed circle on 18. And values less than 18 would be shaded to the left. Number 7. Now this is a tricky one. Plans for the event must change if less than 10 people attend. So I see less than, but you have to think about what this question is saying or what this statement is saying. Would we probably want plans to change? Probably not. So we don't want less than 10 people to attend. We want, instead of less than 10 people, we would want at least 10 people, right? So that we won't have to change the plans. So we actually want the opposite of less than, which really means we want like at least 10 people. So at least would indicate greater than or equal to. So like we can have 10 people or we can have more than 10 people. That's fine. At least means greater than or equal to. The number we're comparing it to is 10. And I will use P for people again. Again, you could use X or any variable and use P for people. I can flip that around and say 10 is less than or equal to P. I'm going to graph this, put 10 in the middle. This would be a closed circle. A number to the left would be 9. A number to the right would be 11. I want numbers greater than or equal to 10, so greater than would be to the right. Number 8, the cost of the phone will exceed $175. So I see exceed. Exceed, if I scroll up to the top, is greater than, so it means it's more than. So I'm going to put my greater than sign. The amount, the number I'm comparing that to is $175 for $175. And this time I'm going to use C for cost of the phone. So the cost of the phone is greater than or exceeds $175. Or I can flip it around and say $175 is less than the cost of the phone. I'm going to graph this by putting 175 in the middle. To the left would be 174. To the right would be 176. This would be an open circle on 175, and values greater than it would be to the right. So I'm going to shade my number line to the right and draw my arrow. Number 9, the number of dogs at the shelter was no more than 24. So be careful. Not just more than, but no more than. And that does affect what type of an inequality symbol we're going to use. So no more than, if I look up at the top, no more than is less than or equal to. So there might have been less than 24 dogs or might have been 24, but no more than. So less than or equal to, the number I'm comparing it to is 24. And you could do D for dogs or N for number of dogs. I'm going to do D for dogs. So the number of dogs, or D, is less than or equal to 24. Could have been 23 dogs, 24 dogs, but not 25. Or you can write it 24 is greater than or equal to D, the number of dogs. I'm going to put 24 in the middle of my number line, 23 to the left, 25 to the right, a closed circle on 24, and I'm going to shade to the left because those values are less than 24, or those values are no more than 24. And our last one, the speed limit on I-81 is 70 miles per hour. In some places it is. On a lot of sections it's not that high. Depends where you're driving. But for the purpose of this problem, we're going to look at the word limit. Speed limit, a lot of times you will see in these inequality translations, and you're focusing on the word limit. So that means that you cannot go above 70 miles an hour, at least not without potentially getting a ticket, but you can go 70 or you can go less than it. So limit, if I scroll up at the top, will indicate less than or equal to. So I will write less than or equal to. I'm comparing that to the 70 miles per hour. And I need to pick a variable. You could do S for speed limit or L for limit. I'm going to do S for speed limit. So the speed limit, or the speed that you can drive, is less than or equal to 70 miles per hour. I could rewrite that if I wanted. 70 is greater than or equal to S, but again, my keywords are if my variable's on the left. And then I just have to graph this. So 70 would go in the middle, 69 and 71. This would be a closed circle on 70 because of the line under my inequality symbol, because I can go 70 miles an hour without worrying about a ticket. And values less than it are to the left. So translating and graphing, paying attention to your keywords, and making sure you know what your variable is representing. Make sure when you translate, you write it with your variable on the left, at least to start with, and then if you need to flip things around, you can do so.